Izuku didn't know what to think about this new nurse candidate that Sima suggested. Vera Nikitina was a 25-year-old Russian woman who came to Japan because she was having trouble finding work in the medical field. This was because she was adamant that she should be allowed to use her quirk, as it was very effective in healing people. And to her credit it was also very easy to see why no hospital would want her to use it. Vera's quirk was called reverse action. It allowed her to take an action she performed, and turn it into a reverse action. In other words, the action would do the opposite of what it was supposed to. In other words, she healed people by doing things that normally do the opposite of healing. So her medical tools weren't so much scalpels, bandages, and the like. Rather she used guns, hammers, and flamethrowers. Obviously, hospitals wouldn't want such things around, but given that his children were far more dangerous than any sort of conventional weapon, Izuku didn't care all too much, if it weren't for the fact that he was currently the target of assassination. Now, on one hand, the woman has undergone a physic probe, so he was as sure as he could possibly be that she wasn't an assassin, but, in the off chance that she somehow managed to trick the test, he'd literally be giving the opportunity to fire lethal weapons at him. The only thing she'd have to do was not use her quirk on him while healing him. But Izuku did feel bad for the woman. If he denied her a job here, chances were slim she would find a job anywhere else, at least in the medical field. Which she was clearly desperate to do, considering she jumped countries to look for work. And Izuku's paranoia was battling his desire to help people. However, given that it's Izuku, one can guess which one out. And that's what led Izuku to be face to face with the woman in his office. Izuku was of course sitting at his desk, while Vera sat opposite to him. Vera was a very large woman, standing almost 7 feet tall, and with a body not dissimilar to Star and Stripes. She had long blonde hair going down her back, and bright green eyes that stared at him intensely. "Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Midoriya," Vera said. Her voice definitely had a thick Russian accent to it, although her Japanese was perfectly fine, although even without the accent you'd be able to tell she was a foreigner just by how loud and boisterous her voice was. "And thank you for coming in, Ms. Nikitina," Izuku said politely, as he nervously shuffled in his seat. "Now, I don't want to waste your time, so I'll get right to the point. I understand why you want to work here, but I want to know, why do you want to work in the medical field so much?" "Well, when I was a little girl, I got very, very sick once. It was terrible. I couldn't get out of bed for more than 10 minutes, I was in constant pain, and I was convinced I was going to die," Vera explained with a look of disdain. "This sickness lasted for a whole year. It was hell. Ever since then, I've always hated illness and sickness. So when I learned that I could get rid of illness and injuries by attacking them with weapons, I knew that this was my calling." "I see." Izuku nodded. "So you want to be a medic not because you want to heal people, but because you hate the concept of injuries and illness?" "Yes," Vera answered strongly with a nod. Izuku thought to himself. Well, that's a unique motivation. If they were gonna send an assassin, they probably would say something like they just want to heal children or something nice sounding. This feels too genuine to be fake. "Okay. Well, I know you're good at healing, but how clean do you keep your workplace and tools?" Izuku asked. "If you're hired here, you will be expected to keep everything as clean as possible." "Of course. Dirtiness brings illness. So I always make sure to keep everything as clean and tidy. Spotless. Here, take a look." Vera then pulled out her phone and showed Izuku a picture of an apartment, presumably hers. It was a very cheap place, but it was surprisingly clean given how places like that normally looked. "This my current home. Of course, money is tight so it's not very good, but I keep it in the best condition." "I see. That's very encouraging," Izuku noted as he looked her over, noting her very clean appearance. Her white shirt and jeans, while cheap, were very clean. Spotless even. "Alright, well, how are you with children?" "Obviously, as this is a childcare facility, you will be dealing with children on a daily basis." Vera winced a bit. "I do quite like children, however the same cannot be said in reverse. I hate seeing sick and injured children, so I can't help myself but to want to heal them with my quirk. This has gotten me in much trouble. I'm quite lucky I have not ended up in prison." "Okay." Izuku was surprised anyone would say that during an interview, but somehow that made Izuku trust her more. "Well, given the kind of children we house here, I don't think that will be much of an issue. Speaking of which, this is a very dangerous work environment. The children here have powerful and deadly quirks, which they can have a hard time keeping control of." Not to mention, I'm currently the target of a very powerful villain organization. Of course, we're doing everything we can to make things as safe as possible, but I cannot guarantee your physical or mental safety. Vera shrugged. That is fine. After all, if I don't get this job, I will be broke. I assure you being out of money is far more terrifying than quirks or villains. Fair enough. Izuku had heard similar lines from Ochako. And I have to ask, do you have any combat skills or experience? It's not necessary given your job, but it would help, given the situation I'm in. I am not experienced in battle, but I'm trained in using various weapons. Vera explained. Although I dislike bringing harm on other people, I will if need be. That's more than good enough I suppose, Izuku noted. He then went silent for a while, as he considered everything that was said. Alright, well I think with all things considered, I have no reason not to hire you. Ahaha, this is great news. Thank you so much, kind child. I will serve you well. Vera sat up and raised her arms in celebration. Knock knock. Hello father, may I come in? Asked Yonda on the opposite side of the door. It's important. Izuku immediately grew suspicious. We'll see. Come in. Yonda came in, and immediately Izuku was filled with panic, as he saw her forehead was bleeding. What happened? Before Izuku could finish his thought, or Yonda could get a word in, Vera took action. Vera shot up from her seat, grabbed that seat, and rushed over to Yonda in the blink of an eye. Smash! The soon-to-be nurse then raised the chair over her head and smashed it over Yonda's head, hard. Both Yonda and Izuku flinched at first, and their eyes widened with fear and surprise, as that was the normal reaction. However, swiftly this reaction faded, as Yonda realized a few things rather quickly. 1, she didn't feel like she'd been hit. Like at all. The impact had actually felt rather pleasant, like getting cool after working on a hot day, kind of pleasant. And the aching of her head had vanished completely. In the fact, the wound had vanished completely. Izuku calmed down quickly, as he realized he'd just seen her quirk in action. There we go. Good as new. Vera said, as she put down her chair, which was completely undamaged. Huh. Yonda was very much not expecting that. She had heard that Izuku was hiring a medic and thus decided to test her, by injuring herself. Well, that was interesting. Thank you? Yes, thank you very much for that, Izuku said after regaining his composure. I see your quirk is as effective as I've been told. Yonda, you're grounded for the rest of the day. I know that wasn't an accident. Izuku thought. Yeah, figured you'd see through that. Fair enough. Nice to meet you, new employee. Yonda said as she took her leave. Izuku sighed, as Yonda left. Be wary of her, she's problematic. Yes, you told me. Dangerous quirks, hard to control. Vera said. No, she's dangerous because of her personality. Although her quirk is to blame for that mostly. Izuku sighed. She is a little girl? How much harm can she do? Vera asked. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX when coming out of the girls' locker room was to be confronted by Mineta. At the very least he didn't attempt to enter while she changed. In fact, he'd been strangely restrained for a while now. No perving that they knew of, and a lot less creepy looks. Maybe that's why Achiko decided to entertain him this time and stop. She looked down and was shocked to see Mineta looking up at her with concern. And he was looking at her eyes instead of her bust. I just wanted to ask if you were okay after seeing that. Mineta asked sympathetically. After seeing what? Achiko asked, confused at his question, causing Mineta's eyes to widen. You didn't see it. It's gone viral. Mineta quickly pulled out his phone and quickly showed a new video on YouTube. One of Midoriya and Bakugo's old classmates just spilled the beans. Achiko watched closely as the video started, showing Bakugo and Izuku in a classroom at their old middle school. Deki, you fucking pathetic waste of space. You think a shithead like you could ever get into UA? Past Bakugo shouted over the phone while exploding Izuku's desk while the green teen trembled in fear. Useless fuckers like you should just fucking kill yourselves so you don't waste our fucking air. And then the video abruptly stopped, as did all the sound in the hallway with it. Achiko stared at the phone for a while with wide eyes and tiny pupils. For a moment, she felt nothing. She was actually so angry that her mind couldn't comprehend it, and so she just blanked. But after a few moments, her mind caught up, and her body felt like it was on fire. Bakugo said he was gonna go train by New Forest, Mineta said, and without a word, Ochako stormed off. Once Ochako was gone, Mineta took out his phone and started texting Yonda. I'm guessing you saw the video? Yes, and I have to say, I'm not very pleased. Father is definitely going to dislike this quite a bit. Yonda responded. Hey, the only way I could get that Bakugo ass-kicking you wanted so badly, was to get Uraraka riled up. And now she is. Mineta defended. I'm gonna link you to the cameras I have set up in the forest. You should be able to watch and record the battle from there. Very good. A bit sloppy, but overall a job well done. Yonda texted back. I'll text you once I'm done watching the battle. But first I'm going to make myself some popcorn. Mineta smirked, as he read Yonda's last text. Let's see how smug you are in a little bit, you brat. He then started texting someone else. Fu, do you have the data? Yep. Fu texted back. And I've already planted the evidence. She's not getting away with this. Even Dad can only be so forgiving. Mineta's smile grew. It was time to teach that girl lesson. No one takes Mineta for a fool except Mineta himself.